Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Melanie. This is Adventures in Hostessville, and welcome to episode 25 of the Vintage Magazine Project and the first week of the July 1958 Boy's Life. Ba-da-bum, ba-dum-bum, bum, ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So the article I want to take a look at today is actually a feature that comes towards the beginning of the magazine called Hobby Hows, and it's where kids can write into the magazine and ask for information about their hobbies because there's no internet to do that with. So it's things like, where can I get plans for making a pair of water skis? Or how can I get to be a stronger swimmer? Or where can I get a list of parts, plans, and prices for a 4 or 5 tube radio receiver capable of getting distant stations clearly on batteries or on 115-volt house current? But kids can also write in with some suggestions, and Dawn Rotherham of Sioux Falls, South Dakota has written in and said, here is a tasty dish to make for a light meal for 8 people. Okay, I'm gonna try this tasty dish. I'm not 8 people, I'm just one person, but I have a hearty appetite. And it says that I start off by cutting 1 pound of American cheese into small pieces. There's not a whole lot of counter space in this kitchen because the kitchen is just a corner of the room. So I'm gonna use this little TV tray to cut up my American cheese food product. Okay, so this is the first episode of the month, which is why I am choosing the cooking one instead of one of the more sporty ones. And that is also because I'm a much better eater than I am a sportsman. But sports are super popular in this magazine, and obviously a lot of boys in 1958 are interested in them. And in fact, right next to the Hobby House, there's this big ad for Wilson baseball gloves with Ted Williams. Take a tip from Ted, Mr. Baseball himself. My Wilson glove makes my fielding a lot easier, says Ted Williams, all-time baseball great. But Ted Williams is a huge baseball star in 1958, which is really amazing because he has been pro at this point for about 20 years. In 1958, he is 40 years old. Ted Williams was born in San Diego in the giant hole in there. So Ted Williams is born in 1918 in San Diego. His dad is a sheriff or something. His mom is Spanish and Mexican, and she works for the Salvation Army, and he apparently hates having to go to her street corner revivals. But he gets interested in baseball at the age of 8, probably about the age of a lot of the kids reading this magazine. Once he is out of high school, he gets picked up by the Boston Red Sox. They send him to the minor leagues with the Minneapolis Millers for a year, but then he is with the actual Red Sox for the entire rest of his career until he retires in 1960. And apparently, he was a little on the cocky side, and when he was younger, he used to say, all I want out of life is that when I walk by, people will say, there goes Ted Williams, the greatest hitter of all times. So, you know, low expectations. But he is, in fact, considered to be one of the greatest hitters of all time. He was a 19-time All-Star. He's one of the few people to have hit over 500 home runs, one of which was his very final at-bat ever, which is cool. He also is one of only 2 people to have the Triple Crown twice. And like I said, this entire career is with the Red Sox. He takes a few years off. He is drafted and serves in World War II, and then is redrafted in the early 50s in Korea. So he is with the Red Sox for a long time and brings them a lot of glory, but his relationship with the fans is a little bit tenuous. And in July of 1958, when this magazine comes out with this picture of Mr. Baseball in it, he's just been fined $250 for spitting at the fans. Okay, so the next thing that Dawn from Sioux Falls says I should do for my tasty treat for 8 is to take 3 picnic-sized cans of tomato soup and bring them to a boil. I only saw this family size. I hope that's correct. I do have 3 of them. That seems like a lot of soup. So I may actually have to try to find 7 friends. So Ted Williams is well known for sort of wishing that he could play baseball without any fans around. He doesn't ever tip his hat to them, which is sort of traditional after a homer. And like I said, he has well over 500 homers. He doesn't do it. He also doesn't particularly care for the press. He doesn't like to give interviews or help them out. And in fact, he is known for when he walks past the press box, kind of doing a that sort of thing. Real cool. At one point, he says, you know, I'm making chicken feed working here. And so the press immediately is like, trade him, ungrateful son of a gun. You know, so there's a lot of that kind of back and forth between him and the fans. And also, even though you're one of the greatest baseball players of all time, it doesn't mean that you always do a good job. He plays left field. And he's definitely a better hitter than he is a fielder. And it seems, I think, to the fans like he cares a lot more about hitting. And they wish that he would focus and try just a little bit more out in left field. All right, the soup is starting to boil. So now I just put in my cheese pieces and let them melt in the boiling soup. So just about 2 years before this magazine comes out in July or August of 1956, Ted Williams is fined $5,000 for spitting at fans. So this time in 1958 wasn't his first offense. What had happened in 1956 is that he had been in the outfield. He missed fly ball from Mickey Mantle. And the crowd booed him. And as he walked off the field, he spit at them and he spit in the press box. And he got fined $5,000, which in 1956 is almost $50,000 today. Like, it's a huge amount. Now, at this point, he is the highest paid star in baseball. He's making $100,000 a year, which is like $1 million a year. No, but it's still not a small fine. And he talks to the press afterwards. And they say, you know, are you sorry you did it? And he's like, no. If those people booed me like that again tomorrow, I would spit at them again. And they're like, oh, are you going back tomorrow? Because by this point, he keeps saying he's going to quit. And he's like, well, I have to go back tomorrow because I can't afford the $5,000 fine if I don't play. But then the next day, he makes this amazing save up against, you know, the Green Monster, and the crowd is all cheering for him. And then he's like, yeah, you know, Boston fans are all right. So this legislator from the South Boston area actually introduces a bill to the Massachusetts House after this to fine unruly spectators. Basically, if you, it's not booing, but it's profanity and stuff like that. And it passes and it goes through. It is apparently never really enforced, but they're protecting their boy. Okay, this is flying right along. The next thing we need to do is put 2 lightly beaten eggs into it and mix them up. So in 1958, he spits again. He gets fined again. This time, like I said, it's only $250. I don't know why it's less for a later infraction unless they're just like, you know what? Ted Williams ain't gonna quit spitting. But that's not his only run-in with the fans in 1958. So in August, just shortly after this magazine comes out, he is angry about a call from an umpire, and he throws his bat. He doesn't argue the call because that can get you fined or kicked out of the game, but he just makes it clear that he doesn't agree, and he throws this bat, and it hits this elderly woman in the crowd in the head. And the fun coincidence is that the woman turns out to be the housekeeper for the general manager of the Boston Red Sox. So this woman gets taken to the first aid room for the baseball players or whatever, and Ted Williams does go in and see her there and apologize, and apparently he feels awful. Like, he was mad, but he did not intend to hit this old lady in the head. She wasn't booing him. She ends up being taken to the hospital and has to stay overnight, but she's got a contusion, I guess, but she doesn't need stitches or anything. And she's fine, and she, you know, forgives him and whatever. It's just always a little bit racky with Ted Williams. Is this supposed to do something? Like cook? All right, the tasty treat part is done, but then Dan Rotherham says that I should serve it on buttered toast. Cabin here that I am in actually did come with this vintage-looking toaster, so I can go ahead and make the toast. Just put it in, wait for it to toast. Ah! So I used an oven. It's not even, but it's toasted. So Ted Williams only has a couple more years in him before he does actually retire from baseball in 1960. He is a manager for a while of the Washington Senators, I think. He also is a real avid fisherman, and I think maybe has a TV show about fishing for a while. He's also pretty politically active. Some of his colleagues say that he is slightly to the right of Attila the Hun. So very, very conservative, notably, except in civil rights. And he is very interested in being able to get black baseball players into the Hall of Fame and onto baseball teams. The Boston Red Sox is actually the last one of the original pre-expansion teams to integrate, and he is apparently really, really supportive of those players when they come in. And in 1991 at Fenway Park, they have Ted Williams Day to celebrate him, and he comes to it and he tips his hat to the crowd. Okay. Whew. I'm tired and hormonal. It's time to eat some of this bread. So he said to eat it on the toast. I don't quite know. I mean, there's a lot of it here. Do I just maybe do this? Do I eat it like a sandwich? Am I supposed to eat it with a fork? I don't know. I'm going to eat it like this. Yeah? That is actively fine. I have a vat of it here, though. And if this is all the more I'm supposed to put on a piece of toast, I'm going to need like 8 more loaves of bread. But if you live in the Kalamazoo or Battle Creek area and you're feeling peckish, come on over, because I'm going to have leftover tasty treat for a long time. And if you live in Sioux Falls and you know Dan Rotherham, please send him my way. I would love to meet him. He won $5, by the way, for sending this into the magazine, which is a not insignificant sum in 1958.